Hello, this is Ron Edmonds. Welcome to our webinar on increasing your odds of getting an offer for your business. Lessons from the Sellability Score. I'm Ron Edmonds and I'm with the Principium group, the sponsor of this webinar today. We're pleased to have you join us. Our agenda today, we have a few administrative matters to cover. Then we're going to talk a little bit about an overview of the Sellability Score. And then the meat of our conversation is going to be empirical data on what makes a business sellable. I'll wrap that up with some summary thoughts that apply this information specifically to our industry, the green industry, lawn and landscape companies and similar companies. And then before we're through, we'll have time for questions and answers. Some of you have already submitted some, and we'll give you the opportunity to do that online as well. First of all, the Sellability Score. Many of you have probably heard of the Sellability Score. Some of you have probably completed the Sellability Score survey. Our company, the Principium Group, partnered with John Warlow, the author of the best-selling business book, one of my favorite ones from the last few years, called Built to Sell, Creating a Business That Can Thrive Without You, to offer the Sellability Score program to our clients and friends. Now, we're not the only ones doing that. There's a network of well over 1,000, I believe, merger and acquisition advisors around the world that are offering the Sellability Score to business owners. But we've been using it since late 2011, and we were one of the first firms to use it. What the Sellability Score is all about is to provide a vehicle to research those factors that most affect the sellability of the business. It produces a score for each person that completes the survey on their business that gives a numerical measure of the sellability of their business. And then they also receive a significant report on that gives the details and gives recommendations for how to address your score, what it means to you, and what things you can do about it. Today we're reviewing some analysis that's been prepared by the Sellability Score team as a result of surveys completed all over the world during the latter part of 2012. The survey was conducted from September 1 to November 7th, only with individuals who are the majority shareholder of their business. 95% of business owners surveyed had annual sales of less than $20 million. Only 5% in the study had revenues in excess of $20 million. Of course, in our target market, a $20 million lawn and landscape business is pretty big, and there are actually only a relatively few that are that magnitude. The vast majority are perhaps $5 million and less. The survey included a randomly selected sample of 2,260 users of the Sellability Score from all around the world. The majority came from the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia, but the vast majority came from the United States. The methodology that was used is considered to be statistically reasonable with a 95% confidence. So we'll walk through some key issues on what will increase your likelihood of getting an offer for your business. First of all, you are almost twice as likely to get an offer if your business can survive what this survey calls the hit by a bus test. I kind of laugh at that because my good friend Jeff Scott gave a webinar not too long ago that I happened to listen to, and he referred essentially to this same situation as the hit by a beer truck test. I think I'll take the beer truck. But simply stated in terms of the Sellability Score, the Sellability Score asked if you were out of action for 3 months and unable to work and be involved with your business, would your business hardly suffer at all, survive, or suffer a little bit but survive, or suffer a lot and not survive, or suffer a lot but survive? And of those that are hardly suffer, survive, or suffer a little, 16% had received a written offer for their business during the last year, whereas only 9% of those who said their business would suffer a lot and not survive, or suffer a lot but survive. First of all, let's take a step back and talk about the question: have you received a written offer, letter of intent, expression of interest to buy your business in the last year? That means what it says. You got an actual written offer. Uh, it doesn't say whether it's solicited or unsolicited, and so it's not just people that are out looking for offers. It also would include people that do receive unsolicited offers. So it's not a totally representative of all businesses kind of test, uh, but it gives us an idea of the underlying information. The hit by bust test is focuses on you as the owner of the business and says what happens if you're not there. So it's a measure of how reliant on you as the owner the business really is, and that varies dramatically among companies. But the issue is, for many companies in our target market, uh, the owner may be the chief salesman, the chief production officer, and the chief quality control officer, all in one, and also be the name on the door. So the question is really in your face as to how dependent the business really is on you as the owner. We're going to find that one way or another, this is probably the most important issue you can address. The next topic is about salespersons, and they found that you're twice as likely to get an offer if you could easily replace the top salesperson in your organization. Again, that's even if it's not you, the owner. But 18% of companies said that it would be easy or fairly easy to replace their most important sales and marketing person received an offer in the last year. 13% of those who said it would be fairly difficult or very difficult to replace their most important sales and marketing person received an offer in the last year. And 9% of those who said it would be impossible to replace their most important sales and marketing person received an offer. So exactly twice as many for easy or fairly easy compared to impossible. If you're doing all the selling, you're less than half as likely to get an offer. So this one measures what percentage of the selling of the company's business services are you doing as the owner. And if the owner is responsible for less than 75% of the company's revenue, then 16% of those companies received offers in the last year, while only 6% of companies whose owner is responsible for more than 75% of companies' revenues. Looking at another key person, companies that could replace their top product, service, design, and delivery person are almost twice as likely to get an offer. So if it would be possible to replace your most important product or service, design, and delivery person, 15% of those companies got offers versus 8% for businesses that said it would be impossible to replace their most important product, service, design, and delivery person. You've probably already been thinking about this, but we need to take a move and think about this in the context of size. And companies generating $3 to $50 million in revenue are more than twice as likely to get an offer compared to small businesses. It's actually smaller businesses, because some people consider $50 million companies to be small businesses, which is probably hard for many of us to comprehend. But of those companies in the sample whose revenue was between $3 million and $50 million, 20% had received a written offer for the company in the last year, versus 14% whose revenue is between $500,000 and $3 million, and only 9% of companies whose revenues are less than $500,000. Intuitively, that makes a lot of sense, because it really correlates back to some of the information we've already covered. The smaller you are, the more likely you are to be dependent upon the owner as a salesperson and management and so forth. Also, the smaller the deal, the less attractive it may be to buyers, partly because it costs money to do deal costs and get lawyers together and so forth. Also, sometimes the kind of customers that are attracted to very small companies, less than 500,000, are quite different than the customers that are attracted to larger players. And so there may be a perception that there's less synergy. Companies that can replace their key suppliers are almost twice as likely to get an offer. Uh, so if you believe that it's possible to replace your most important supplier, 15% of you received an offer, while those that say it would be impossible to replace their most important supplier indicate that only 8% have received an offer. Yeah, typically in line landscape, that's not going to be an issue, but it could be in certain locations. Here's an interesting one. Younger owners are getting offers at twice the rate of their parents. Buyers are keen to acquire young growth companies. So companies that are owned by owners aged 32 or younger, 26% received an offer in the last year, versus only 12% for those where the owner was 33 or older. Now that's a very interesting statistic that I've given a lot of thought to. And just why would it be like that? Well, one that comes to mind is that in many companies, situations where an owner has owned a company for 10, 15, 20, 25 years, there may be a plateau effect, and the opportunity for growth may be lower. There also may not be as much fire in the belly of the owner, whereas a younger owner has made it happen in terms of growth over a shorter period of time, is likely to still be in the upswing, and the opportunity for growth is one of the key things that a business buyer is going to be looking for. Companies with a management team are getting offers at almost twice the rate of companies that don't have a management team. Now, you can see that we've really already talked about that, the reliance on the owner, and then the need for a key salesperson, a key operating person, and so forth. But 16% of the companies in the survey that have some kind of management team received an offer in the last year, versus only 9% of those in the survey that had no management team whatsoever. Here's another interesting one that takes a little thinking about to get your hands around. Companies with many followers are almost twice as likely to get an offer. And by follower, we mean someone that's on your email opt-in list, that's a friend on Facebook that follows you on Twitter, or something along those lines. Now, here's where it gets a little weird, because they define having many followers as having 10,000 or more. Well, I don't believe that we have very many companies within the green industry that have 10,000 followers. So you can kind of substitute whatever you think means a lot of followers in analyzing this kind of thing. But 23% of those companies that had many followers had received an offer, versus only 13% for those who had fewer followers. We talk about this all the time, but companies with more recurring revenue are more likely to get an offer. So they defined the threshold for recurring revenue is 25%, and said that 14% of companies whose recurring revenue is more than 25% received an offer, while only 9% of those whose proportion of recurring revenue is less than 25% received an offer. Applying this in our language, in our industry, in terms of maintenance and lawn care, I really think that would be more like 75% for that to be meaningful. That a company that has 75% recurring revenue is going to have enough recurring revenue to really be deemed a recurring revenue company and be much more likely to get an offer. Just to fill in the gaps, this data was prepared or obtained from a document that the Sellabilityscore.com prepared called the Sellability Tracker for the fourth quarter of 2012. They analyze data each quarter, and this is the most recent data they have available. I thought it might be good to think about what factors really are the most important in making a company sellable. Those of you who I've spoken with before have heard me talk about value drivers of the business. And value drivers are those factors that make your business sellable. And if you want to read more about that, my book, Green Exit Planning for Lawn and Landscape Companies, uh, business owners, has lots of information about industry specific value drivers and different subsectors of the green industry. But the key ones are that the business has strong growth prospects, that the business generates consistent cash flow with prospects of growth. That's really, generally speaking, is we're talking about recurring revenue there. And that the business is not overly dependent on the owner, and the business is not dependent on any particular employees, suppliers, or customers. And the business has a high percentage of recurring revenue. Those are the key factors in identifying if a company is sellable or not. And the more issues you have with those, if you're in a downward spiral, if you're inconsistent, if you're overly dependent on the owner or employees, suppliers, or customers, or you don't have very much recurring revenue, then you're going to have a harder time selling the business. Most of those are pretty straightforward. Some people have a little hard time coming to grips with the idea of recurring revenue. And I think it's important to pause and talk about that for a minute, because some businesses just have recurring revenue and some don't. And in fact, in many cases, the recurring revenue business may be less profitable uh, than the ones that aren't, but they don't have but the recurring revenue ones have more consistency. They don't have to resell business, and a buyer has a reasonable expectation that a significant portion of the business can stay with the new owners. What do you do if you don't have that? Yeah. One thing people have done, and many companies did in the green industry during the Great Recession, I'm going to quit using that term soon, uh, was to pivot their business and focus more closely on recurring revenue. So some companies that focused a great deal on construction turn themselves into maintenance companies. That's great if it works. I really don't recommend a dramatic change for the business. It's like they say, you really need to go home from the dance with the one that brought you. Uh, a company that has become successful by being a solid construction company may not ever be successful as a maintenance company, and vice versa. And so we suggest that those kind of moves be made more sparingly. Maybe companies felt otherwise because of despair over the depth of the recession, but we saw a lot of companies that tried to make a very dramatic change, and some of them did it too little, too late, and it didn't work. And that's something to think about. Okay, let's throw it up in for questions now. We have a few questions that were submitted in advance, and those of you that are listening on can use the chat feature to the left side of your screen and submit a question. We'll try to get to those today as well. The first question we have is what is the best way to make it known that my business might be available for sale? Uh, this is, of course, a little bit of a complicated question. We also have another question that came in: what other sources than BizBuySell should I consider? Uh, and BizBuySell is the largest online database of businesses for sale in the United States. There's another similar website called BizQuest.com, and they're actually under common ownership, and they represent the vast majority of business in this industry. They not only do they populate those two websites, they also populate the systems behind Business for Sale at the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and many other systems. And they are one way that business owners connect with potential business buyers. Uh, there are other advertising media online. There are also trade magazines and the like where some people will advertise, although I will tell you that that is very expensive and frankly doesn't work all that well. You can look in the back of some of our green industry trade magazines and you'll see the same ads that have been running for months and months and months, if not years and years and years. And so they don't necessarily work that well, and they're relatively expensive. Uh, what is the best way to make known that your business might be available for sale? Well, certainly the the key to this is some form of networking. Uh, and if you're going to take this on yourself, you're going to have to network with enough people to feel comfortable with talking to them about the possibility of, of selling your business. Uh, I think it's a really good idea to maintain good relationships with other competitors in the marketplace, friendly competitors, if you will. And in my experience, the trade associations like Planet, the Professional Land Care Network, uh, TCIA, and others, and state associations are all good ways to do that. Uh, and some people are very concerned about having much interaction with competitors, and I understand that. But when it comes down to both the potential sale of your business and frankly, possibly a contingency plan in case something happens to your equipment or people or something happens to you, having some kind of relationship with somebody else in the same market is an awfully good idea. Frankly, that's all very hard to do, and that's one of the reasons there are people like us, business intermediaries, that are in the business of networking to sell businesses. Typically, at least if you're like us, we're pretty high profile in the green industry, and we get lots of calls from people that are interested in buying businesses and have a reason to call people, and it's just easier for us to network. Uh, Now, there are millions of other people that can do that, and in some cases, your attorney or your accountant or another advisor of that nature might well be able to assist you with that too. But networking is the name of the game. The next question is what is the best time of the year to close on a sale? There's a pretty specific answer to that question, and that is in season. And usually, kind of towards the beginning of the season, if you are a seasonal business. And that's a little bit counterintuitive. Certainly, sellers often would prefer to sell in the off season when things are quieter, and it's kind of tough to sell in the early time of the season when things are really moving full bore. But the reason is this. First of all, you can demonstrate that the business is alive and functioning as described, and it's not dormant. It's hard to visualize the quality of the business when there's not production going on. At the same time, it is much easier to transition customers during the season. Uh, the theory is this: you do an acquisition, you make an announcement, and you get out and serve the customers as soon as you can after the deal is announced, uh, so that they don't have any time to fool with looking for alternatives. Your competitors don't have the chance to muscle in and try to disrupt things before you've had the opportunity as the buyer to actually service the customers, prove that you can do a good job, and probably be doing it with the same people that served them before, and that nothing's going to change. It's going to be cause them to want to change to another provider. And so that's really a compelling argument. I think you'll usually find that if you do end up needing to sell your business in the off season, that you'll usually get a lower price because the buyer is going to assume that there's going to be a higher rate of cancellation of customers. Um, so that would be my recommendation. The next question is, should an owner begin building their company with an eye to selling it from day one? Well, certainly among exit planning professionals, that's the conventional wisdom, that the time to begin exit planning is the day you either start or buy a business. And there's a lot of merit to that idea. Of course, many, if not most people, do not start a business with the idea of planning its ultimate sale. Of course, that may be a little unrealistic since the ownership interest in every business is going to change at some time during the life of the owner or immediately thereafter at death. Uh, it may be a family transition, and a lot of people plan on family transitions of their business ownership. Great idea. There's lots of good ways to make that work. Uh, the only problem is that we often see people who have planned on a family transition, and for one reason or another, it no longer makes sense. Maybe the child that you expected to take over the business loses interest and doesn't want to work in it. Uh, or you lose interest in that child's business skills and you don't believe they're the right people to preserve the business and its legacy. Uh, so that's common. Or some other extraneous things that makes it important for you to realize value from the business. There's a lot of different possibilities, and so at a minimum, there needs to be a plan B, and that there needs to be a plan for how to make the economics of a family transition work as well. Um, in general, exit planning along with contingency planning is something that everyone that's a business owner should be doing in order to preserve and enhance the value of the business for yourself and for your heirs whenever the time comes. Do we have any other questions? Oh, here's one. The question is, are the offers that were referred to earlier in this presentation solicited or unsolicited? Um, and the answer is there's no distinction that was made in the survey on which it was based. Uh, and I think you can assume that the majority of them were probably solicited because there really aren't all that many written unsolicited offers that get made. Uh, and therefore, the information is a little skewed because it means that that's of the people that solicited offers. If that's correct, those percentages apply. I think that makes them even more valuable in terms of information. Okay, if there are no further questions, we're going to wrap it up. I want to thank you for participating today. I want to say a word about our firm, the Principium Group, Green Industry Transaction Advisors. And we work in the industry in the areas of mergers and acquisitions, exit planning, and capital formation. We spend a great deal of time representing sellers and buyers in merger and acquisition transactions in the green industry. We also really like to work with people in terms of exit planning so that we can help them preserve the value of their business and exit their businesses on their own timetable and on their own terms. Makes the merger and acquisition process a lot more satisfying. If we can be of information to you or help you in any situation involving your business, please feel free to give us a call or an email. I've put my email address and my phone number on the screen, ron@principiumgroup.com. That's PRINCIPIUM group.com. Or call us at 888-229-5740. Feel free to call us at any time. You can rest assured that we understand that any conversation that you have with us about your business will be on a confidential basis. We appreciate that the decision to sell your business or to buy a business is a very important point in your business career, and we will treat that with the respect that it deserves. Again, thanks for joining us on this call today. We look forward to being with you on a future webinar or public speaking opportunity. If you're not on our mailing list, please let us know, and we'll get you on the mailing list for our monthly newsletter, Green Industry Merger and Acquisitions. And again, thanks and have a great day.